Okay, so this is like like a Dungeons and Dragons movie, you know, or just a really bad fantasy film. Okay, there was actually this one movie where Jason Statham, of all people, Jason Statham. So I'm going to be in a magic movie. I want to be like a mage, you know, and I want to be like a warrior, like I was like a farmer. And then I get my sword and I go out and I fight dragons and stuff. Ray Liotta was in it as the main villain. Yeah, Ron Perlman was also in this. And that was a terrible movie. And The Name of the King is a terrible movie. Jason Statham is in there. Ron Perlman is in there. It's just terrible. And what has happened with The Lord of the Rings, that was kind of the pinnacle, right? This is the best that fantasy can get, right? It's because of the Lord of the Rings trilogy that you got the Game of Thrones TV show, right? Which was another huge success, which was something else that was breaking new ground. Television had never done anything like that before, not on the scale of Game of Thrones. I mean, those battle sequences they have in Game of Thrones, you know, the set pieces, the actors, the scale of it is just as big as Game of Thrones. I'm sorry, the Game of Thrones scale is just as big as The Lord of the Rings, but it's on TV, you know, and it's just, it never happened before, and because of that, we've come full circle, and now we have Rings of Power. But Rings of Power isn't up there with those guys. He's way down there. Rings of Power is crap. It is just way down at the bottom with just the terrible, you know, stuff like, you know, a Dungeons and Dragons movie. I know they're making a new one, which is kind of supposed to be like a parody of the whole thing, which that might work. But also in The Name of the King, it's down there with that. You have the World of Warcraft movie. That was pretty terrible. They were kind of doing like a celebration of like the fantasy genre. And so I didn't completely hate that movie. I also never played World of Warcraft video games. But all in all, yeah, it's a terrible movie. And that's kind of down there too. When you're doing something like fantasy, when you're doing something, especially like a Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones, you really have to make sure that you have a plan from the beginning. You have a tone is set. Is it going to be serious? Is it going to be funny? Is it a parody? You know, does it take place in an authentic, grounded, real world, or does it take place in a completely fantastical world? You have to have everything laid out ahead of time. Or you're going to end up with the Rings of Power. The Rings of Power is just a mess. All right, so we start off with, they're in Osgiliath or something like that. It's not Osgiliath, but it's something of a similar name. It's the fortress that's basically a ripoff of Helm's Deep. Well, I'm sorry, actually, before that, you have Ada or Adair or whatever, the evil elf guy, played by the same actor that played Benjen Stark in a much better film, like a much better TV show, Game of Thrones. Go back to that, Benjen Stark. I'm just going to call you Benjen Stark because Ada is just stupid. But anyway, he comes up, gives a really dumb speech about how, oh, my children. And that's about it the entire time. He acts as my children. We've all crawled through the mud, and we've gone through hardships. But now this land will be ours. Yeah, and everyone's all, rah, rah. You get close-ups of the orcs, you know, rah! The orcs are the best part of this whole show. Great acting on the orcs' part. You know, back to the full diaper walk and everything. They're the best part. So anyway, we're gonna go attack. Yeah. So what do? They just slowly saunter up. There's no, the camera movements are boring. They're not even marching up. They're not even attacking. There's no build-up. They go up to the fortress, and then they open the door. And then they're inside, and then they're looking around. Find them! Spread out! He speaks in, Mordor or whatever, and they look around. They're trying to find everybody. Nobody's there. Everybody's gone. And I'm like, oh no, now there's going to be some kind of whatever. And then I remembered in the last episode, oh yeah, the tower. They talked about the tower. Well, sure enough, Arondir, who, I'm just going to say Arondir's my favorite character. Because he's just the right amount. Well, Arondir and Elendil are my favorite characters because they know exactly what they are, who they are, and that's it. He's an elf. He's a badass elf. That's it. Fine. And then you have Elendil, who is the Hallmark father, Hallmark Channel movies, just the Middle Earth. You're my son. And it's like, okay, yeah, whatever. You at least know your thing. Your character knows, like, you have a character, you're a thing. You're not confused and trying to figure out what you are. Like they're just doing really stupid stuff with Sauron. I mean, but whatever. Forget that. We'll come back to that. Okay, so where are we? What are we doing? Oh yeah. Okay, so we're in the Helm's Deep ripoff, and you kind of he's shooting some. Arondir is shooting some arrows down, and then he shoots an arrow that hits a thing that's wrapped around the tower. The tower comes collapsing down on top of everybody inside the castle, effectively wiping out the entire army. And then he runs out the front door really quick. Whoa, whoa! He flips his, an arrow and it hits a thing, a latch that sort of swings some chains around that has a block of wood that goes against the back of the door. The door is swung shut because of that. It just smashes it together. Oh, we're trapped inside. Now they're all in there burning and dying. Great, Arondir took out the entire army. Fantastic. Wow. In a matter of like 5 or 10 seconds. All that build up for over 5 episodes or whatever was for absolutely nothing. Payoff was terrible. Okay, great. So where are we now? Oh yeah, then we go back to the Numenorean, the boats. To Middle Earth. Oh no. You see Isildur kind of like he's tending to the horses. He actually takes a bite of an apple, gives another bite to the horse, and then he takes a bite. Pretty disgusting. I don't know, was that sort of like some kind of like... Yeah, that seems like something Rohan would do, right? Like if you're... I mean, it's just disgusting anyway, okay? Don't share food with animals. That's disgusting. They eat their own shit. What are you doing? That's disgusting. I don't know what that was all about. It's to show that he has a relationship with his horse. But eventually he actually doesn't, because in a really another dumb, pseudo sort of wisdom kind of situation, he's talking with his dad, and he's like, I don't understand. The horse is so jumpy. He doesn't want to listen to me. And he's just, well, that's because the horse... isn't afraid of what's going on. He's afraid of you, the rider, and something. And I don't know. That was supposed to be some kind of lesson. I don't know what's going on. So anyway, he goes up on deck. The sun is going to be rising, and then Galadriel kind of sneaks up behind him. And says, aren't you supposed to be below, soldier? And he's just, oh well, my lady, I just wanted to kind of see the sun or whatever. And then she's just like, well, but what is your rank? Oh, I'm kind of like a janitor. And I was like, I relate to him because I'm a janitor. No, I didn't do that at all. I went, stupid. All right, so then you're kind of looking out, and it's like, oh, you're trying to catch, are you trying to catch the sight of the land coming in? He's like, oh yeah. Oh no, actually, she said, you'll be able to see the land soon. I was like, oh yeah, probably. Yeah, I mean, we're coming up on it soon, probably. And she says, I've been looking at it for 2 hours. Well, bully for you, it's just like any chance she gets to be an absolute bitch. So it's like, here's the thing. She's like that was kind of like, it's, when you were a kid and you would just go around and you guys, you would do like a LARP or something, or you would all pretend that you're wizards or whatever, and you're all fighting, kind of like a Super Smash Brothers scenario. And there's always that one kid where no matter how much you try to attack him with magic or with a weapon or something, it's always, shield, oh, I got a shield. It's like, oh, super magic, and he just goes, shield. Also, you're dead, I zapped you. Bzz. She's that kid, that really annoying kid that just absolutely cannot lose and just has to, I've been looking at it for 2 hours now. It's like, well, yeah, I know you have your elf eyes, and what can your elf eyes see? You can see in far distances, but why do you have to, make that line of dialogue stick out like a really sore thumb? It just really bothered me, because it's just, I've been looking at it for 2 hours. Who gives a shit? He just wants to see the sunrise. This guy just gets beat up for no reason. I don't know what... He's basically a pathetic loser, and then you got to come and rub it in. I can see it for 2 hours, because I have elf eyes. Shut up. Who cares? So anyway, and then the father, Elendio comes up and says some things, and then she's like, something about, but what about Isildur's mother or whatever, and he gives some other dumb speech, and then he just kind of goes, oh, she drowned, by the way, and then walks off. All right, whatever. So that whole scene's pointless. All right, so then you go back to the fake Helm's Deep, and basically, or no, now you go to the village, because what happened is after, Arondir takes out the whole army, then they're basically like, yay, 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 you know, the people you find out are actually several miles away from that particular fortress, and they're heading back to the village of all places. And they're like, quick, we must be ready. We need to secure the village and get it ready for attack. And then there's another big kind of really dumb speech that makes no sense about we must be ready. But in order to do that, we need to draw out the enemy. And I don't remember if it was Broadwin or if it was Rondir that gave that speech. I really don't know. There's so many of these dumb speeches in this episode. And they basically kind of do like a 13 Assassins situation, which is a far superior movie, by the way, where they basically make the whole city, or the whole village, into a trap, right? Because you got these 13 assassins that were hired to kill off the new emperor of Japan. He's a really bad guy, or he's going to be the emperor of Japan. They're trying to prevent that, right? And so they're like, all right, well, we'll set up here. And it's great because they set up the whole village, like there's going to be traps and different things, and these 13 assassins, these 13 samurai, basically have to defend this place. And it's great. And I think that, too, is also based on Seven Samurai by Akira Kurosawa. Wonderful director, you know, very prolific in Japanese cinema. But also Takahashi Mike did 13 Assassins. Two really great movies. I highly recommend them. Go watch them right now, especially if you love samurai movies. Far superior stuff. But anyway, so now we're going to do this stupid village. They're going to try to do the same thing. Also, with this village, there's like 5 houses. Is this even really a village? Should this be more like an encampment? I don't know. Whatever. So they kind of set up some arrows on top of the, you know, the ceilings of these different things, and then the tavern is going to be the stronghold. And eventually they get attacked, and they defend the place. They kill everybody off. It's kind of a decent fight between a Rondir and a big orc. They kind of do some throwing around, but then it's quickly ruined by him doing some really dumb, stupid, you know, slow motion flips and stuff. And then, of course, he's oh no, he's going to be killed. You know, the orc has got him pinned down. And I'm going to get you. And that went on and on, looking his face, then his face, then his face, then his face. It went on for like a minute. And I'm like, the tension is gone. The tension is gone. If you were going to do the surprise, you know, he gets stabbed in the back. Well, your time has passed. Well, sure enough, he gets stabbed in the back. Bronwyn actually, you know, saves his life, whatever. Oh, we didn't see that coming. Everyone cheers, hooray! And then they realize, oh, actually, they start to take the masks off of the orcs. Turns out they were just men, right? Like half the crowd that left in the last episode. In another really, really, really stupid speech where it was basically just like, she's like, who will stand and fight? And then the other guy gets up, yeah, you know what our ancestors did? They lived. A good thing about this episode. This is a good thing. No Harfoots. Yay, yay. No stupid Harfoots. Those disgusting creatures. Disgusting. The Harfoots are terrible, and I'm glad that they were not in this episode. And it just further goes to show and prove they don't need to be in this show at all. Waste of time. Also, Elrond and Durin and that whole deception thing and the thing with Mithril and that was formed by the tree and all this stuff. Like, I'm having a hard time following this show. It's just a mess. And it doesn't help that you don't care. So you have no interest in trying to figure out the story anyway. It's terrible. But none of that was in it, luckily, though. We've concentrated completely just on the Numenoreans showing up just in time for Mordor to be formed, I guess, and then also the South, the people of the South, which there's like 100 of them or something like that, and that's all we're worried about. Okay, so back to the attack on the village. Arrows, 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 arrows. So after they decide, or after they see that they've been killing their own people, basically, there's all this silent music, or when all the everything kind of goes to slow motion, and you got some really dramatic music kind of building up slowly, and then everyone's kind of looking around. It's all dramatic. We've been killing our own people. Oh no! And then you have one orc that's dying. It's just, oh, you had to pay the cost. What do you think was going to happen? Where? And I'm like, I don't know. This isn't as sad as it's supposed to be. I can tell you that. So after that, then the orcs start to shoot everybody with arrows. So it's sort of like it's a trap within a trap. So everyone gets shot with arrows. Broadwin gets shot with an arrow, and then she dies. But then she's not really died. She's dead. Didn't really die. One of all the fake death type of thing. If we just linger on her for a little bit while longer, a second longer, the audience might go, oh no, is she actually dead? And then she's not dead. Which I thought I kind of went like, darn, because that would have been That would have been cool. Well, can't kill her because she's a woman, right? Okay. So anyway, moving on. Adair shows up, or Ajah shows up, and he's like, I'm going to kill everyone in here until you give me the sword thing, the hilt, the key to Westeros. I'm sorry, definitely not. The key to Mount Doom. Turn the key, put the sword in, turn it, and it opens the floodgates, and all the water goes pouring down through all those trenches that we've created, pours into the Mount Doom, or into the lava in the mountain, and then it blows up like an atomic bomb and forms Mordor and Mount Doom. Now, visually, that looked really cool. I will give the show that. That was the second good thing about this episode. Only two things. And, one was what was not in the episode, the Harfoots, and the other being that visually, yeah, the creation of Mount Doom and I guess, the burning of everything and creating Middle-earth looked really cool. Even though it doesn't make any sense at all. Nobody knew that this sword wasn't there. He's been looking for this sword the entire time. This sword that is the key that when you put it in, literally turn it to unlock somewhere, I don't know where this dam is, and then all the water comes pouring out and goes through all those tunnels. Those big tunnels and pathways that nobody could see because they're only out in the middle where everyone can see where they are in all the tunnels. And the writers think this is terribly clever. I mean, you just imagine Gandalf just being like, I suppose you think it was terribly clever. All those pathways. And, it's kind of like, okay, but it doesn't make any sense that if they didn't know where the key was, it's almost like when they went into that fortress, they didn't know that it was there until they went in there. But Adair was also looking for the key, which is the hilt, which is the sword, right? That the kid's been obsessed with this entire time. It doesn't make any sense. But anyway, but before that, before the creation of Mount Doom, I got ahead of myself just because I kind of wanted to, that's just where my thoughts were going. But you want to go back now to, so Adair comes in, the kid is like, I have the key's down here, hey, it's under this rock right here. Adair thought that he had hid it from everyone. He's like, no one can know where I've hid it. I've hid it so that no one knows. He gives it to Adair. And then right after that, of course, the Numenoreans show up with all their horses. They're horses! So let me talk about this for a second. So you have all the Numenoreans on horseback, and they know how to ride really, really well, and combat from the horses. And it's like, you guys are the masters of the sea. You guys are on ships, and the entire show you've been building up, the past 5 episodes, you've been building up that, the sea is always right. That's like their motto. The sea is always right. The sea is always right. We're ship people. We know how to do things with ships. There's one scene, which is that cringy scene where Galadriel and Elendil are riding on horses, and it's in slow motion, and it's supposed to be beautiful, but it's just awkward as hell. Really awkward. Don't do it. Don't do that again. And that's it. Nowhere does it show anybody training on the back of horses. There's no, when did they suddenly become Rohan, right? The riders of Rohan. They even have like the horsehair coming out of the back of their helmets and whatnot. And it just seems to me that the Numenoreans are horse lords now. I mean, I don't know. It's confusing because it comes out of nowhere. And even that really cringy, terrible fight scene or training scene where we saw Galadriel training with all of the soldiers. And apparently Elendil was really great at training and wouldn't need Galadriel to train them anyway. But, female empowerment. But anyway, so we had to do all of that. And if they were going to set up this great horse, the horse scene where they're all coming down, you have the big cavalry of horses that come in and save the day, that run through the village and kill all the orcs. You could have set that up. They could have done training on horseback, and that would have been way more interesting and could have been pretty fun. Instead, we got this really awkward, I'll just, since I don't want to get into details, I'm just going to show you the basics of training, the basics of sword fighting. This is in the last episode. This is Galadriel training the recruits, and it's just, stab, twist, gut. Like, that's verbatim what it was. Whoa, okay. So, of course, Isildur's friends are kind of falling around. One of them almost dies. He gets saved by the other guy type of thing. Isildur, for some reason, I guess the janitors have to stay behind to protect the queen because that's where he was. He was up there on the mountain with the queen. The queen looks over at him, go. he's like, oh, I can go now. Yeah, all right. Oh, I'm on my horse. Oh, yeah. And then goes down, and then you see Elendil, his father's, oh, the orcs are on me. Ah! He gets taken down, thrown to the ground, and you think Isildur is going to save him, but then Halbrand actually saves him, and whatever. So they kill all the orcs. And then what happens after that, we're going back to the sword now, which has sort of been the key or whatever. And when the key. Well, so Adair escapes, and Galadriel and... Oh, wait, no, I'm sorry. This is the best part I completely forgot about. During the battle, there is a scene where Galadriel comes in, and you see orcs shooting arrows at her, throwing spears at her, and she's just doing this on her horse. Like going completely to the side, like, shoots arrow, cut to... And it's not even a good edit. But she's basically she's falling from side to side on her horse. Or even like, whoa, like this back move. And it's like, okay, we've entered, in the name of the king territory. We've entered the area of cringe, where it's like, she can dodge everything. She's just perfect. She's dodging arrows, dodging spears, and it's like, what the hell? And then, but they really had to drive the point home that she's awesome as hell. That she's the shit. And how we do this is we have the kid, I can't remember his name, and Arondir standing there and going, oh, like again, mouths wide open, drooling. I think this happened in an earlier review I had, I don't remember, but where someone else did this in the show, where they're like, who is that? That's Glad. Oh, that's what it was. It was the last episode when she walks onto the ship in slow motion, and there's the light on her face and all this shit, and like the sun behind her, and everything's glowing, and all the soldiers are just, Galadriel. Oh, wow. And then the same thing happens here. You have the kid in Arondir, and the kid's just, who is that? And he's just, that is Galadriel. And they're just drooling. And they're just like drooling over this woman that doesn't deserve it at all. She's terrible. She is just this, it's cringy and it's stupid and doesn't need to be there. It's just stupid. But no one likes her up to that point, because before that, she's just a bitch to everybody. She just walks into Numenor, yells and screams, and then eventually she talks to Halbrand, I've convinced the Numenoreans to drive their army over, we're going to take their army back over to Middle-earth, where they have no business being, because who gives a shit? But I made them do it, and it's like, you're just terrible. So, but following her line now, so she follows through the woods, because he's got the key, right? He's got the sword. And then Halbrand sees them, grabs a spear, and takes off. So they go through the woods, they're riding horses. They rip off Lord of the Rings again, where she's slowly talking in Elvish to the horse, which makes him go faster. Sort of reminiscent of when Arwen is going through the woods on horseback with Frodo and being chased by the ring race. A far superior scene, an amazing scene. And somehow Halbrand gets in front of them both and trips Adaz. Horse drops the sword thing. And then Halbrand is about to kill him, but then he's, Adair looks up at him and is like, who are you? Well, first Halbrand's like, you remember me? And he's like, Adair's like, no. And then he's like, oh, well, basically you should. And then Adair's like, what, did I kill your women, your wife and child or something? And he's basically just giving him the answer of like, yes, of course you did, because, this is just cliche, right? And then again, Galadriel stops Halbrand from killing Adair. And then Adair is now a prisoner. You see later on in some kind of farmhouse type situation, Galadriel's interrogating Adair, basically saying I want to know where Sauron is. Adair's like, oh, I killed Sauron. Okay. And then Galadriel threatens him, basically gets up to Adair and is just like, yeah, I'm basically, I'm just going to kill all the orcs and stuff. So basically, she's a genocidal maniac at this point. Going to kill all the orcs, exterminate them. She's angry and terrible. And then he calls her out. He's just like, oh, it seems that, Sauron hasn't created, basically it's like, evil has created two monsters. Basically saying that not only is he a monster, but she's a monster as well. Thank you. Somebody calling her out. Now everyone can see, yeah, you see character growth. You see that? She's being told that she's wrong and she's going to grow. Well, the problem is that this is episode 6, right? We're more than halfway done. There's only 2 more episodes. So at this point in time, it's too little too late. You haven't built up any kind of character with Galadriel that's positive at all. all you needed was like you needed more than just that stupid speech at the beginning with her brother, that pseudo, like wisdom type of thing where it's like, hey, you know what? If you put a lot of rocks in your boat, it's going to sink. If you don't put rocks in the boat, it's going to fly. It's going to go up to heaven or whatever. And it's like, what the hell is going on? Like we needed more. So maybe have some private moments of Galadriel on her own, just like she doesn't want anyone to see her grieving or something. She has her brother's dagger, and she could have been like crying over this dagger or something, or even been like, I will continue the fight in your memory, or something, like some kind of connection that you can make with her character that would make us like her. We don't get any of that. So she's going to kill him now. Galadriel's going to kill Adair. And then Halbrand shows up behind her and goes, hey, Galadriel, don't do that. She goes, okay, whatever. So they don't kill Adair. And then as Galadriel leaves, Adair kind of looks up and looks at Halbrand and is just, who are you? And he just, Halbrand just kind of looks behind him and then walks off. Because we all know that Halbrand is actually Sauron. Which brings me to this point. So Halbrand, all this time, he gets driven from the Southlands and whatever. And then he ends up back here at Middle-earth. So I think what happened is this is it. What they've done is they've given Sauron a really stupid backstory. So Sauron was like, you know what, the war is over. I'm going to try to just be a farmer and live a normal life. I'm just going to change into a man. I'm going to take the form of Halbrand or even just possess his body. And I'm going to live the life of a man and not be a warlord anymore. So when Adair comes up and kills him, because he says, yeah, I cut him in half, kills Sauron, Sauron's like, this is great. Now I've faked my death. Now I can take possession of this guy's body, and I can just live a normal farmer's life. And then, of course, his son or his daughter or whatever, his family is killed. And so he's like, crap, that didn't work. So he ends up going off into the ocean and meeting Galadriel and going to Numenor, and he wants to stay there and build a life. But then, of course, he's dragged back, and now he's been declared king. He's going to be the king of the Southlands and all this stuff. Unless this is a part of some really bad overall plan where Sauron is scheming to take over, or they really did give him this stupid backstory of where he's just a farmer guy trying to live. He's like, I really did. I tried to be a good man, but I'm just going to have to go back to being Sauron now. I'll show them, because no one on Middle-earth is worth, they're all terrible people. They're not worth saving. You can't save them. The only way to save Middle-earth is to wash it clean of all these terrible people, except the orcs. They're cool. Yeah, and it's like, that seems to be what it's leading up to. That in order for, Sauron's whole motivation is that his family was killed. What? It's like, I'm pretty sure that didn't happen in the books. But more importantly, it's just a really, really stupid cliche motivation. It's just dumb. But that seems to be what they're setting it up as. So now we finally get back to the sword. It turns out Adair didn't really have the sword. He didn't really have the sword because what they actually recovered was just an axe. It was a decoy. Who really has the sword? Well, that guy who went up there and went, that big thing about, we'll live, let's go, follow the orcs. That guy, the butcher guy. So he takes the sword, plunges it in, turns the key thing, which somewhere opens up a huge dam. All this water goes out, eventually falls into the pit where all the lava is, forming Mount Doom. Everything blows up, which forms Mount Doom and forms Mordor, and that's the end of the episode. So a lot happened in this episode, but again, nothing happened in this episode, where it's like a lot of stuff happened, a lot of plot, but the story didn't really progress except at the end, I guess, where it's like Galadriel's kind of like, maybe I shouldn't be such a bitch, but little too late. Too little too late, this late in the game. All that should have been like at the middle of the season, where you see the turning point happen, right? And where then you go off towards the end of the episode, towards your redemption arc. But we're already at the end here. So it's like, whatever. It's just this show just continues to perplex me. It doesn't make any sense. It's just, again, they think they're really clever, the writers and whatnot, but it's just ridiculous. And then where does all the Rings of Power come in? When are we going to see, that would have been interesting to see Sauron in different forms tricking everybody into creating the rings and all this kind of stuff. And I guess that's going to happen later, but the difference is now presumably we already know by the end of the season who Sauron is. So all that deception isn't going to mean anything because we're already going to know, like, oh, well, he's obviously tricking you, you idiot. Don't make the rings because we know who you are. We know that's Sauron. It was definitely not Halbrand. We didn't see any of the weird, people in white. We saw them briefly in the last episode, and they're looking for Meteorite Man for some reason, unless he's actually Sauron. Who cares? I don't know. Whatever. All right, well, if you enjoyed this video, check out my other videos. Please like and subscribe. Leave a comment below. Do you like the episode? Do you not like the episode? Do you like the show? Are you watching the show at all? Or are you just watching me kind of do my summary/review rant about it? I'll see you in the next episode.
Why are we even out here? We're not even making minimum wage. What are you talking about? This is great. We're in space.